We are live.
Good afternoon. I'm Shanika Smith, the Chair of the Equity and Engagement Committee. I'd like to welcome you to our September 19th, 2023 remote meeting. All council committee members and staff are participating virtually. To help the audience follow along, I'll state each section of the agenda aloud. We are streaming live on the Virtual Engagement Hub, which is accessible through the Virtual Engagement Hub link on the front page of the city website. We also have the option for the public to listen live by phone. For today's meeting, we have the option for people to call in and comment live during the meeting. To call in and comment live, use the number 855-925-2801, meeting code 2689. Your phone will be muted and you will hear the meeting live. At this point, speakers will need to push *3 to enter the speaker queue. I'll now go through and introduce all our committee members and staff who are participating virtually. Just give a quick hello. Councilwoman Kim Roney.
Good afternoon.
Councilwoman Sage Turner.
Good afternoon.
Assistant City Manager Rachel Wood.
Good afternoon.
City Attorney Brad Branham.
Good afternoon.
Director of Equity and Inclusion Brenda Mills.
Good afternoon.
Director of Communication and Public Engagement Dawa Hitch.
Hello, everybody.
Brand new Community Development Coordinator Promise Bozeman. Promise, we're introducing her to a new position. I think that was her old position that I quoted, but she is the new Kayla coordinator. All right. Hey, Promise, how are you? Congratulations. Our Economic Development Division Manager, Rachel Taylor.
Good afternoon.
All right, we get right into our agenda for today. And can I get a motion to approve the minutes from August?
This is Kim, so moved.
Second.
All right, I'll do a roll call vote for approval. Councilwoman Roney.
Aye.
Councilwoman Turner.
Aye.
Myself, aye. The motion is approved. We'll kick it right to Ms. Brenda Mills with an update on progress made by our Community Reparations Commission. Brenda, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and fellow councilwomen. I appreciate having this opportunity. Katie, if you'll go to the next slide. So our key takeaways today, the Reparations Commission met last evening, and the following agenda items were discussed: the proposed meeting format changes, a vote on the definition or framework for reparations, a vote on the accountability recommendation, a vote on the updated timeline, a discussion of the proposed resolution amendment, and an update on the Community Reparations Summit scheduled for October 7th. Next slide. So there was a very nice spirited conversation around the proposed meeting changes. So what we thought about as staff, we just proposed looking at putting the commission into work groups during their monthly meeting. We looked at having a business meeting the first hour, which would be recorded, and then they would have opportunity to sit in their either the impact focus areas or switch up and be able to work with other focus areas. They decided that they would like to remain in the format that they have. I think one of the issues is they wanted to be able to record the entire meeting. And they feel like they can do some of the work in those impact focus areas. So that did not change. So we will be continuing with the same format that we have had since we began. Next slide. So defining reparations, there was a discussion. We had Renisha Crawford come back in from Trauma Informed Institute. She did a really great job. I think it's more like a community RBA type process where she helped them go through defining reparations. It was really good process, very successful. I am not going to remember everything that they said. We will be getting that information soon, but they basically have put parameters and a framework around what they consider to be reparations. She had a series of statements that she had them to answer. We heard from everyone that was on in attendance at the meeting, which is great. And so we will be sharing that with them next time. It will be on their agendas. We will put it on the website. So I'm really excited about that. because they've gone back and forth with, what reparations really is, and should we change the name? And so I think they got to a good place last night. So we really appreciate that. So the accountability and sustainability discussion and vote is around what happens once the recommendations are approved by council, and who's going to make sure that these recommendations get, there's action on them, there's continued action. They had a discussion around that accountability. There's been some proposals from the education impact focus area, as well as the economic development group has proposed some things. So what we're looking at, they're basically looking at several options, which would be like a permanent reparations accountability task force. Under that would be an oversight committee and a community accountability board, which would be under that task force. Next slide, Katie. And so maybe that was it. So I didn't write a lot on that. Sorry about that. But they did not come to, the two groups that have made the recommendations did not expect a vote last night. So city and county are still looking at the oversight and the accountability and the sustainability as well. And so we will be bringing that back up at their next meeting and have some more discussion around that. And they've been asked to go to really look at those proposals with individually, but also in their impact focus area, especially if they have other recommendations around that. I think some people had some heartburn about having 3 different boards. So you'd have a major board and then 2 other committees up underneath. So with a little bit of burnout, I think they were kind of hesitant around that, but they're still discussing what they would like. Next slide. So we're still working from the same timeline. Through this month, we have been looking at the legal along with other staff in the city and county, looking at the recommendations to date that we have received. The subject matter experts and legal have been working with the impact focus area groups. We finished our initial review of their recommendations on the 15th as asked. For this next few months, September through December, they're looking at continuing to host meetings with the community. They're also looking at partnering with other organizations to kind of get the word out. Next slide, Katie. And also in October with the summit, that will be another great opportunity. We are planning to have all kinds of ways to get feedback from the community at that event. So let me just tell you a little bit about that. I know we're going to get to that, but the October 7th is the main event, but we're having a showing of Black in Asheville and the Big Payback, the 2nd and the 5th, and then the 7th will be the full conference summit, which will be 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. So we're looking at trying to create an opportunity for people to give feedback before, during, and even after that summit. So through January, we're going to be continuing to look at recommendations and rounds. We have given feedback to the project manager, Christine Edwards of Civility Localized. We'll be working with the IFAs on that. They will start, I'm not quite sure if it'll be October, but they will start looking at the adoption of some of those recommendations. The hope is that they will pass all their recommendations and then take an opportunity to look at how they want to prioritize those recommendations in terms of short, medium, and long term. And we have emphasized to them, we need them to prioritize them, or we'll have to prioritize them just to because we know we can't do everything in 1 budget year, 2 budget years. So they understand that. So we're going to be working on that process. February through April, we should hear back. That has not been added, but we should hear back from Stop the Harm Audit, and we'll have all the recommendations. The hope is that we'll have all the recommendations passed by the Community Reparations Commission that we can present to city, county governing bodies. And then the project manager is starting a document on development of the reparations action plan. So that will talk a little bit about how we got to the reparations commission and the reparations process, as well as what we're going to do following. And there'll be an evaluation process. Next slide. So the meeting in August, one of the commissioners, Commissioner Young, brought a proposal to extend the term of the Reparations Commission for 2 years. We did bring it back to the committee based on the feedback from the chair and the vice chair. There's mixed feelings about this. I think people feel like they want to see what they can do over the next at least 3 to 4 months before they make a decision about asking for more time. And also there's a little bit of burnout. There's people who've been serving and participating. I think this month makes a year and a half. They started in April of 2021. So 2022. And so it's been about a year and a half. People felt like they needed to have something to show for it. You know, where's our recommendations and where's all the stuff that we can present? And then staff has asked that we need to know what an extension, what would you be doing in that extension that's a little different from what you're doing now. We have roughly 7 months, about 7.5 months for them to get the work done. We feel they can do it. We're working on helping them with the recommendations. We have some other support that we're going to bring into the main meetings with Bernicia helping, hopefully, maybe with some future stuff. So yeah, we're really excited about that. So they did not vote on that. They are going to read it over and think about it. So the update on the upcoming summit, like I said, it's not just the 7th, but we have a movie on the 2nd, which I think is Black in Asheville. Todd Gregg, our local photographer, videographer, did that one. These are free events, all of them. The 5th will be the big payback. That's a film documenting the work that was done in Evanston, Illinois. If you have not seen it, it's amazing. And I think it'll give some context to our local folks around reparations and what's being done across the country. And then on Saturday, we have an attorney, Fartherly, who helped with the family in California that was able to get their land back from the city, the beach land. So he's going to talk to them a little bit about how do you make recommendations that don't always have a tie-in to just Black people. How do you work not around the law because we have to be legal, but just kind of how they think about recommendations. And then we're going to break out into the impact focus areas. We are having UNCA's professors who've done some research in those 5 focus areas will be partnering up with our impact focus area people to present to the public what we've had to date and then take any questions and feedback. Next slide. So as I said, we had a rousing meeting. It was very good. We looked at the format changes, which they did not do anything with at this time. We successfully got over the mark of defining the framework for reparations. So I'll report on that next month when I have more detail. The accountability recommendation is still on the table. We're still looking at what does that look like. As I said, staff is also having that conversation along with the chair and the vice chair, and the CRC members were asked to kind of think about the recommendations that are out there. We did not vote on the updated timeline, but the timeline has been updated since last of December 1st of January. So we're just continuing with that. A discussion around the resolution amendment to extend that time. Folks are not ready to consider that. And then an update on the summit. So with that, I'll ask if you have any questions or comments, and I'm done. Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Brenda. What I'm going to share today is for my colleagues and for the record. This is not a reflection of staff's presentation today. I've been watching the meetings and attending as much as possible. I've attended the retreat. And the meeting last night left me with some big questions in myself that I just wanted to share with you, kind of like what I'm wrestling with and what I think we might need to be prepared for. I think it's possible that our process is designed to tell a story, to heal and repair historic racial harms in our community that continue today and that will impact future generations. However, our process seems to be getting in the way of our Community Reparations Commission doing its work. And so the question I'm wrestling with is Is our organization ready to support the Community Reparations Commission if the request is to move the process outside of the city and the county? Now, we're doing this right now with the continuum of care with our way that we address homelessness. It makes it so that you can have member participation, you can have organizational participation. The city and the county are going to have seats at our continuum of care. Mission Health or other health providers can have seats. You can have for-profit entity, nonprofit entity, philanthropists. And I think that when we move the continuum of care for homelessness outside of the city and the county process, the hope is that there will be more accountability and more community buy-in so that we can achieve a common goal that we're not currently doing because we're holding the continuum of care for homelessness inside the city. And I'm wondering if while we're learning through this process, if we might be ready to support the Community Reparations Commission if the ask is the same, if the concerns are mirrored. So if that happens, if the request comes back that we have recommendations that we can't make because of conflict of interest, or if our processes of holding it in place stifle, are we ready to support? Is that probably looks like technical support, making sure like meeting space and microphones are available. But I'm excited for the summit in October. I'm kind of watching how we're running into the same problems with the continuum of care that the Community Reparations Commission is bumping into. And the outcome is that I'm watching folks that are the most valuable and resourceful people around the subject matter in our community sit at a table for an hour and a half to 2 hours and then be told what they can't do instead of helping us understand what we need to do. So that's all to say that I don't think it would be an uncommon process for us to do because we're doing the continuum of care at the same time and for the same reason. So thank you for hearing me. Once again, that's not a reflection of the staff report. Thank you to Brenda for bringing the work back. But I think if folks will listen to the archive of the Community Reparations Commission meeting from last night, you might hear some of those same concerns that have landed me where I am today. So thank you for listening.
Kim, thank you for sharing. That's interesting. I hadn't heard that. I'm not sure. I'd love to hear if Brenda has heard this from commissioners or if this is just a new idea, but it's also how we do the home consortium. And then Asheville is the participatory jurisdiction. One thing that strikes me is both the COC and the home consortium have like grant revenues and stuff, and then, you know, more formal process, which would be wonderful in this case too. But I'd be interested in exploring this more if that's something. Like to date, I've just waited to hear what the commission would like to see done, right? And as they make requests, I learn more and we adopt them usually. So I'd like to hear more about it, I guess is my addition. Thank you.
All right. Is that it?
Well, Brenda, do you have any thoughts on it? Is this something that you've also surmised from these meetings, or is this?
I have not.
You have not.
It has been our goal not to tell them what they cannot do. We have advised them what legally we can do. And there are legal ramifications to some of the things, but we have told them, and I want Brad to speak a little bit to this. You can bring whatever recommendations you need to. We're just giving you feedback on maybe some other ideas, other ways we could do this. That's part of the reason why we're bringing in speakers to kind of help with that. But I've not heard taking it out of the city county purview and putting it into a different structure. Because if we still got to support it, I'm not sure how that looks.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned how those others function.
Mm.
And then like just today, we voted at HCD to support the COC transition, and with it came administrative monies, right? It's just a little different, but I'm intrigued. I'd like to hear more if the commission even wants us to look at it.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Brenda. Look forward to next month's update. We're gonna go to update on the Festival of Neighborhoods. Dawa Hitch is going to take that part of the conversation. I think she has a call to action as well for us to spread the word about the Festival of Neighborhoods. Dawa?
I do. I appreciate that, Councilmember Smith. That's really beginning with the end in mind. That is certainly the ask at the end of this. This will be a very short presentation. And on behalf of the your neighborhood advisory committee and our community engagement division within our department, I'm just really excited to share this opportunity with you all. So Dowa Hitch, I get to serve as the Communication and Public Engagement Director for the city, and I'm here to tell you about our upcoming Festival of Neighborhoods. Next slide, Katie. All right, so as I mentioned before, this is being sponsored by, it's been designed by, and produced by, with support of city staff, but really the Neighborhood Advisory Committee has taken the lead on this. This is the first time we've been able to have an event like this since pre-2020. There have been some other Festival of Neighborhoods in the past, and they all kind of have their own flavor based on what the committee members want in that particular time. And this year, it's going to be on September 30th from 10 a.m. until 4 p.m. at Martin Luther King Jr. Park. And as the committee was putting together this idea, back when they identified this as one of their priorities for this calendar year, they really had the City Council's vision of neighborhood and climate resilience in mind. So not only how can we bring people together and build resilience through existing relationships, but also it aligns well with Neighbor Month, which is in September, and it's also Emergency Preparedness Month here in September. So we're kind of rolling into hurricane season, just wanting to take that opportunity to make sure that our neighborhoods have information and materials to respond to climate emergencies or weather-related emergencies at their fingertips. So there's a lot of different facets that are going to be covered and available through the festival. Next slide. All right, so a few highlights. As the committee was pulling this together, we had great conversations about, what are the goals of this festival? What do they want to make sure is nourished through this festival? And one was definitely just connecting communities. So opportunities for neighborhoods to learn from each other, to share things that have worked well, and then just really build that network and camaraderie between neighborhoods. There will be entertainment, right? We want it to be fun. That was one of the committee, their goals. They wanted it to be fun. Informative was another one, but there'll be inflatables, there'll be food trucks, there'll be music, interactive entertainment giveaways and door prizes. We'll have a little over eight city departments that will be present to share information about what they do. Fire department, for example, sharing information on emergency preparedness. And then the Buncombe County Tax Assessor's Office will also be there, as well as some local nonprofits. And again, we've got that neighborhood resilience building and how to prepare for emergency events component of the festival that will be there. We're excited. So our Cape department is going to have a booth, and we've got an exciting activity for families. So maybe that's a little selfish, but I'll give a shout out. Please come and stop by our booth. Next slide. All right, so here we are to wrap it up. It's happening September 30th, 2023 from 10 a.m. until 4 p.m. The goal from the Neighborhood Advisory Committee was for it to be fun, informative, and to create connections. It's free and open to the public, and we would love if everybody watching today, as well as our council members here in this meeting, if you could invite your neighbors and then pass along that word. So if you want to get to materials, you could follow us on our socials and just share that way. Or if you just want to Google Asheville Festival of Neighborhoods, that should get you right to some posts about it. And then you can pick up that and share it that way as well. So happy to take any questions and certainly appreciate this opportunity to share this great event with you all.
Any questions or comments from our committee?
Oh gosh, I hope I didn't have my camera off the whole time. Did I?
Well, thank you,
Doesn't
Dawa,
matter.
for the presentation. I'm looking forward to the Festival of Neighborhoods.
Thank you. I'm really here.
Thank you, Dawa. And we'll be sure to get the word out for that event. Okay, now we'll move to our next item on the agenda is a Kayla update. I think we have an introduction of a new position, new person.
Yes, can you all hear me? You can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I am Promise Bozeman, the new Workforce Development Coordinator, also known as the Kayla Programs Director. Very excited to be here with you guys today. All right, and our theme for Kayla this year was Grow with the Flow. And Katie, if you want to go on to the next slide. And some of the key takeaways today, the City of Asheville Youth Leadership Academy continues to have a positive impact on youth in our community. This past year, all 23 graduating Kayla seniors were accepted into college, with 2 students receiving 2 full rides. This year, we were able to partner with some great organizations like MAHAG, the Asheville VA Medical Center, and One Life. And some of the key focus areas that we focused on this year were career exploration, financial literacy, leadership development, and the focus for fall will be to provide assistance with college applications and scholarship research. Next slide, Katie. And just taking a look back at last year, the 2022 through 2023 Kayla annual report showed that 100% of Kayla students were accepted into college. There were a total of 23 college acceptances. Kayla students received an estimated $240,000 in scholarships outside of our organization. 38 Kayla students participated in paid internships across 25 internship sites. And Buncombe County distributed $46,000 to cover the Kayla scholarships that we actually provide the students. Next slide, Katie. And what's happening now, what I'm currently working on is our main focus this fall is college preparation, which consists of helping students apply for college, providing college recommendation letters, making sure the Kayla students are adhering to those college application deadlines, assisting students with college essays and personal statements, and also helping students apply for scholarships. And what is new to Kayla, what I have been currently working on is our group work sessions. Group work sessions are something that I created that's new so that the kids are able to come back together after the summer internship, because normally they don't come back until they actually graduate into our graduation ceremony. But I still wanted them to be able to connect with one another, to be able to find out, to be able to help each other through their last senior year. So I created group work sessions so that they can come back together and meet with each other. And I also have created the Kayla Mentorship Program. And just to give you a little bit more about the Kayla Mentorship Program, the Kayla Mentors are individuals with superior academics and strong leadership skills that demonstrate academic promise and the desire to succeed. And some of those responsibilities for the Kayla Mentors will be to be a part of our strategic partnership funding panel. So we have 4 students right now, so they will be a part of that panel and making those decisions. They'll also be planning group volunteer activities for the students. And they'll also be identifying student needs in our group sessions. So I thought that was very important to hear from the kids so that we can know what their needs are. Next slide, Katie. And this slide basically just shows you how the Kayla students are broken out, and it lets you see the amounts in each school system. So as you can see, Asheville High has the most Kayla participation, but this year my main focus is getting out there promoting Kayla so that we can see more from the different school systems involved in the Kayla program. And also it shows you the graduating seniors as well on this slide. All right, the next slide, Katie. And this summer, we actually had 28 internship sites. It was 3 more than last year. And we have it broken out into 3 sectors. I won't name them all because it's a lot. But we had sectors such as local government, nonprofit, and the private sector. As you can see, the city of Asheville blew it away. We had a lot of different internship sites with the city. Capital Projects, City Manager's Office, Community and Economic Development, IT, Parks and Rec, Planning, and Urban Design, just hit out the ballpark. Next slide, Katie. And for orientation this year, we had a lot of interest in the medical field. So what we did was we actually collaborated with Mayhag, and we had a health day with Mayhag. So we took our students over to Mayhag, and they had a full day prepared for them. So during our Mayhag Health Day, they did pig dissections. We actually worked in the medical simulation lab. So in the medical simulation lab, they had to figure out different scenarios and figure out what was going on with the patient medical-wise. So that was a lot of fun. And also they participated in a germ activity. So everyone's hands were sprayed at the beginning. The kids had to go into the bathroom and wash their hands off as best they could. And then they would come back and then they would have to show their hands, and then they would put it under a VA light and it would show if their hands were clean or if they still had germs on their hands. So that was a very fun activity. And next slide. And we also collaborated with a couple of different organizations this year for workshops, one of them being Goodwill, One Life. They have a youth program that helps people ages 14 to 24 uncover their passions and reach their goals. They're also partnered with community organizations and provide programs to help students through the steps of self-discovery to get them on a path to vocalization and educational success. One Life actually hosted our financial literacy program, our financial literacy workshop this summer. The students were able to learn about money management, savings, and the importance of credit and the financial cost of renting an apartment. And the good thing about that is we actually took a bus over to an apartment complex, let the kids get out, just went through the same process as though you were actually going to start, try to rent an apartment. So they were able to ask questions. They were able to provide them with the actual numbers it would cost to rent an apartment. And then they were able to take them into a vacant apartment and show them what a one-bedroom apartment would look like. The students were able to see that firsthand. So that was very exciting. And another collaboration that we did was with the VA hospital. The VA hospital actually provided us with a tour, and the kids learned about different career opportunities. The VA hospital actually has their own program that they offer for kids, but when COVID hit, they had to close it down. So they were so excited to have our kids come and being able to work with them. So in 2024, the VA hospital is going to be allowing students to intern at that facility. I don't think they're going to bring back their program, but they will be allowing us to have our kids intern there. And they will actually host another workshop next year. Next slide, Katie. And I just want to show some fun pictures of the students this summer. This is at this is at the VA hospital. They have a studio. So the kids created a Kayla anthem. They were able to record and see what that was like. And if you can tell, the Kayla students have these large white suits on because we actually went into a sterilization room, because at the VA hospital, they actually do surgeries there. So they were able to take them back and show them, how the instruments are sterilized and what they have to put on. And, they were able to see exactly what they do behind the scenes at the VA hospital. Next slide, Katie. And to go with our theme, grow with the flow, we also went water rafting. So this is a couple of cute pictures of our students going down the river. Next slide, Katie. And we also visited Winston-Salem State University. So this is just a group picture of us going down there. Again, some of those key takeaways: the City of Asheville Youth Leadership Academy continues to have a positive impact on our youth and our community. This past year, all 23 graduating Kayla students were accepted into college, 2 receiving full rides. This year, we were able to partner with some amazing organizations: Mayhag, the VA Hospital, One Life. And some of those key focus areas that we focused on this year were career exploration, financial literacy, leadership development. And my main focus for this fall is college applications, helping the students with college applications and helping them find scholarships. And do you guys have any questions?
Does anybody have any questions? Congratulations, Promise. I think you're the right person for the job, and good job on the work you've done so far.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Promise, for taking on this work in our community. One of the students is a former neighbor that I've known since they were in kindergarten, and I got to hear their experience, what they learned, and what they do and don't want to do because of what they learned through this. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Echo the thank you. It was wonderful to hear all of that. It was great.
And how has your outreach been when trying to get students outside of the city school system? Seems like you're trying to branch out to include county schools.
Yeah, we're trying to branch out to include county schools. So I have actually been reaching out to all of the school counselors. I'm starting early. I feel like I'm getting a good start. Just trying to, normally when we go out and we promote Kayla, it's after Christmas. But this year I'm trying to get into the school system early so that I can get more participation from those different schools and just connect with those counselors. So I'm really trying to get in and make good relationships.
Yeah, what made me think about that is, you know, it's been a great support. Kayla has been a great support too of a lot of our students of color. And since a lot of our students have been, and their families have been moved outside of city limits, they're now county school students.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering how that outreach would look and how we can target families that would normally be within the city school district, maybe as a start.
I think just building a strong relationship with the school itself, because I think Alex was having problems with communication, being able to actually come in and promote Kayla in certain school systems, certain schools. But I feel like I'm just, I'm still new, but I have been able to connect with people, outside of Asheville City Schools. But my main focus is like Inca, having people, students be able to participate in Inca, Owen, schools of that such.
Okay, great. I'm excited for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and then we'll move to the next item on our agenda, the strategic partnership funding. Round 2, Rachel Taylor is going to recap the pilot and also give us an update on the recent round of awards. Rachel.
All right, thank you so much. So yes, I'm Rachel Taylor, Economic Development Division Manager. I think since I last spoke to this committee, that is a new position for me. So we're excited to have Promise on board and really working to fill out the rest of our division. So today I will present an update and some funding recommendations and options. Next slide, please. There's a lot of key takeaways, but I just want to make sure that everyone had the same information since we were last at this committee. In April, the committee and city council reviewed recommendations from the evaluation panel and approved funding 6 agencies for a total grant award of $356,209. The committee and council directed staff to issue an additional round of funding with unspent dollars after the pilot grants concluded, and that was on June 30th of this year. Staff is seeking council direction on 2 options to redistribute the $50,000 remaining from that pilot program. The grant program will continue to disperse funds into the community, and staff recommends opening up applications for a 3rd or 4th round, depending on how you all vote today, of funding this winter. The grant program will continue to seek feedback from the committee, stakeholders, and the pilot program process to inform ongoing improvements. And the evaluation process will build on feedback from this committee, such as involving Kayla students. I'm really excited to have those mentors, Kayla mentors, be a part of this program. We'll also work with external partners and other subject matter experts. We've also included timelines for the next application cycle, and those are updated to reflect the needs of the program, current capacity constraints, and school programming calendars. So, next slide. So a brief overview of the what I'm calling round 2 program adjustments. So this was the round of funding that you all voted on in April of this year. So some adjustments that were made to the program were that we streamlined communications and administrative requirements by updating the application process. We increased the award minimum to $35,000 from $20,000 per program application. We included additional community members and subject matter experts in the evaluation panel, provided award recommendations based on fully funding requests, and awarded 2 multi-year grants. This application cycle received 23 applications, 6 of which were awarded. We just got over 1.6 million in total funds requested and awarded just over 350,000. Next slide. And so here you can just see that side-by-side comparison of applications, funding requested, median requests, and awards for round 1, which is the pilot, and round 2, which is the round that just happened in the spring. Next slide. And I also wanted to highlight the organizations that were awarded from round 1 and round 2. 2 organizations were awarded in round 1 and 2. Those were Umoja Health, Wellness, and Justice Collective and Read to Succeed of Asheville, Buncombe County. Next slide. So here you can see the utilization from the pilot grant awards. A total of 375,500 was awarded, and 325,500 was actually used. So we've got about 50,000 in grant awards remaining from that program. And just as a note, from a process perspective, we did allow all of the organizations, all the grantees from the pilot, about 60 days after the close of their agreement to kind of finalize and close out their invoicing process. I don't think that they really took us up on that full 60 days, but just a point of program adjustment that we made. Next slide. So we've got 2 options today for basically what to do with this remaining 50,000. One option is to roll over the remaining 50 into the next award cycle. So we could redistribute that. The next grant cycle is set to open in December. Rolling over the remaining 50,000 would increase the amount available for the next funding cycle from 242,000 to 292,000. The pros of this option are that rolling over the remainder streamlines the process. It accounts for the timing of the grant cycles and accounts for limited staff capacity. The cons are that rolling over the remaining funds does not allow for a more immediate redistribution of those funds from the previous grant cycles. And next slide. And so here we have option 2, which is to reallocate the remainder of the pilot program. And so we could redistribute the award to an applicant from the most recent award cycle. So basically we'd take those 23 applications, and instead of seeking a whole new application process, would just pull from that pool of applicants. So during round 2, the evaluation panel indicated that they would have recommended funding for 7 additional organizations if they'd been directed to recommend awards based on partial funding. And so with that, 2 organizations were eligible and had not received assistance from the city through either the grant program or other significant means. 2 other organizations received other types of support from the city this year. Another 2 organizations received funding in the first round of awards, and 1 organization was no longer in operation. So of those first 2 organizations that I mentioned that were eligible and had not received assistance from the city, the YWCA's Light a Path Youth Expansion Program scored higher. And available evaluation panel members recommended allocating 50,000 to the YWCA's Light a Path expansion. Just a couple of notes about this program. The Light a Path program works to increase resilience and self-regulation skills amongst local youth, including middle and high school students, with classes to be offered on-site at each participating school. So the expansion is that I believe, and we've got YWCA listening to this call. So if there are more in-depth questions about the program, we can bring them on. But the Light a Path program, I believe, initially focused more on an adult population. And this request, this application, really focused on expanding that programming towards the youth population.
Thank you so much so far. Can you tell us the other organization that was also, I just feel like there's some incomplete information, starting with what's the other second organization?
Sure. It was the Buncombe County Partnership for Children, and I might be moving some words around, but yes.
So I'm not inclined to withhold funds. So I'm glad that we're having a conversation about getting these funds into the community. I am curious why we would focus on a youth expansion program instead of existing programs that we had previously funding and applied for funds. But yeah, I'm sure other people may have questions as well. But first, it would help to know who the other organizations are that are vaguely named here.
Yes, so I can pull up that information really quickly. And
yeah, sorry, Rachel. I for some reason, when I saw the slide deck, I assumed there would be like some more information about the orgs because we had so many more funds requested than we have available. And I know that we care about our youth and placemaking and addressing mentorship and violence among our youth. And we want to be really serious about this, but I just need more information.
Of course. And I definitely want to provide the information that you all need for this decision. And just as a note from a process perspective, we started with these 7 because it felt like a good starting point based on the full evaluation panel's recommendations. Not everyone from the panel was currently available to kind of reevaluate the full spectrum of applications. So starting from this point in the notes that were made during that evaluation process is kind of where we were at with that decision making for this option.
And I'm also really curious because we had previously funded YTL, and I don't have a really clear understanding on why we would essentially walk away from a partnership. That question's still lingering for me. It looks very much like in previous years we've partnered with YTL, which does grassroots existing programming, not a new program, but existing programming. And then we walked away very publicly, but without a reason. So that's why I'm like, okay, if we're not ready to like get behind our partners, then why are we looking at expansion of a new program?
So before, and I can't answer that because I was on the evaluation panel for this year. But what I do want to provide is that a little bit of additional context about the 7 organizations. So the YWCA of Asheville, the Light a Path Youth Expansion Program, they had an average score of 88.9%. And requested funding of $75,000. The second organization, this is again in that bucket of eligible, didn't receive funding during the pilot program and doesn't currently receive any additional funding or assistance from the city. So that second organization was the Buncombe Partnership for Children, the Early Childhood Workforce Development Program. That application had an average score of 80.3%. And requested $100,000 for their application. The next 2 organizations were in the category of eligible, and they didn't receive funding during the pilot program, but they currently received or very recently received additional funding or assistance from the city. So the first organization is Leaf Global Arts. And that application was for the Leaf Global Arts Academic Enrichment Programs. That application had an average score of 84.6% and requested $35,000. And so the city provides some funding to this organization, though they're still able to apply to grants. And then the second organization is KL Training Solutions, my daddy taught me that. The program is College Career and Readiness. That average score was 83.8%. And requested funding for $100,000. And so the city recently conveyed a building to this organization for $1, and they are still able to apply for grants from the city.
So there's not an existing application from YTL.
So they are in the third batch.
Okay.
And so because these were funds from the pilot, there were 2 organizations that had received funding during the pilot program. And so that's where they're in this category. So YTL training programs applied for their youth summer programming after school advocacy program. That average score was 86%. The funding requested was $150,000. And as I mentioned, they received funding during the pilot round 1 of grant awards. The second organization was Christine Avery Learning Center, the Village Project. The average score is 82.2%, and the funding requested was $78,000. And again,
that's really helpful. And I would say maybe moving forward, it would be helpful to have some more, even if it feels like it's redundant, to have some more links to the back end, so that as we're doing our just information seeking to be prepared in advance for these meetings. That way I could ask you questions in advance if we just had some more information. Thank you for articulating that information verbally. Okay, so there's a couple things here. One is where I'm at. Like, in mind, I want to invest these dollars. I don't want to sit on them. And we have existing applications with grassroots organizations that are doing the work in our community right now. So I would love to make a recommendation for us to allocate the $50,000, but I'm not sure that it should be for youth expansion. And I'd love to know what my colleagues at this table think.
Well, I can support your idea. Well, I can support the direction you're going. I think what'll be helpful for me and the committee in order to make an informed decision on today, if we had a visual of all the organizations who applied this fiscal year and who were eligible and still in good standing, meaning the organization is still incorporated. They haven't dissolved, because I heard some information about organizations who are no longer in existence. If we can get a list of all organizations who are eligible, then I think we can make an informed decision. And with that information, maybe have the scores from the evaluation committee just as added information for us to come to a decision on how we should reallocate the 50.
I like that. Okay, so does that mean that we can schedule a quick follow-up meeting to this and not have to wait a whole month?
So the thing, we've pounded at this thing. Like, we can ask her, Rachel, if she has that information available for us to get a visual right now, and we just kind of look at it. Or if you all want to reconvene, I have no problem reconvening for a special meeting with just the decision on this item.
I'm happy to do that as well.
So you're happy to reconvene after we get more information about eligible applicants and their scores from the evaluation committee, and if they're still a standing organization.
Yeah, it would help me if it mirrors this graphic that we're looking at right now. So right now it says 2 organizations were eligible, have not received assistance, and they are, and here's the links to them. Mm-hmm. 2 organizations received support from the city, other support, and they are, and here's the links to their application. So that with the score and eligibility would definitely, I think, help me and hopefully help our community as we get ready to move quickly to release these funds.
Yeah, if we can get all the information we can get, including information about which organizations are eligible this funding period, who were also awarded in the pilot during the pilot, I think that'll be good information too. Because what I hear you saying, Kim, I definitely agree with. We kind of want to follow our investment. We invested in an organization and we see great performance. or great outcomes, why not continue to fund that organization to seed more into that work or have consistency or investment into that work?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right, Rachel, both Rachels, are you clear on our direction?
Yes, so if you'll allow me to say it back, so I make sure that I've got it.
Okay.
So I heard that we'll have more details kind of about each of the organizations and their scores, their eligibility. They'll be organized kind of according to how they're organized here. I would like a little bit more clarification on whether you'd like to see that, which were, I heard you wanted to see everyone who had been funded kind of from the pilot and then also in round 2. I assume that we wouldn't.
Just the history of the organization receiving funds through strategic partnership.
Great, got it.
Since we restructured it to focus on opportunity gap, we just had 2 cycles, right? So it's a history of funding through this funding pool.
Great.
So like that would look like if an organization applied for funds in round 1 and then did not draw down the funds and then those funds ended up back in the pool, we don't want to like get stuck in another hamster wheel. We want to like get these dollars on the ground.
Which I think that's a good point, but I don't think that it applies to this 50. I don't think any of this 50 is rollover money from monies not spent down. Am I correct, Rachel?
It is.
Okay, so all organizations were able to pull down, but it might be valid information to have for us. Like if they struggled before, will this be an ongoing struggle? Or is the organization in good standing and able to draw down funds without barrier?
And I can speak to that very quickly. One organization was not able to get to the point where they could finalize an agreement. And we did work pretty closely with them. Another organization had applied for and received a grant for a pilot program. And just because there was a pilot but because some of the timing issues, just had that mismatch of funds and programming. And we also did not allow for any of the organizations to have an extension. The program had gotten into it just had gotten complicated in years past with allowing some of those extensions. So that's where the bulk of that 50,000 was coming from, those 2 organizations.
I think it would also help if, and I know this is more work, but while we're doing this loose ends tie-up, if there's an application where it looked like it was for summer program, where those organizations then had to scramble and find other funds because we didn't help them with their summer program, but now they're like seeking funds for their ongoing program. I just need to know who they're serving, how many they can serve, or like, do they have ongoing after school programming would be a great example. Because if an application looks like it's for summer, but it's for ongoing programming, then that'll help inform my decision.
Great.
Which might look like, since this is a small list and not the whole list, making a call with each org to be like, are you still pursuing this funding? And what do you have ongoing programming that it would be used for? I'm just imagining that we wouldn't want to go through this process, get dollars on the ground, and then the organization be like, y'all left us hanging this summer. Why are you like putting us on the spotlight now? And I don't want to put anyone, including us, in that situation.
Do y'all think that's possible? Because if you can make telephone calls to check in with the organization and see if the programming that they propose is still ongoing, or whatever Kim said. I don't mean to diminish what you said, but I'm just trying to get to my point. I think you should also, if you are going to make telephone calls, also let them know how much we have available, because $50,000 towards a $150,000 budget might not even be worth their time. And we might be back at the drawing board again, trying to decide which organization to fund with this remainder if it's not worth the organization's time and it won't be helpful towards their budget. 50 won't be helpful towards their budget.
Right. So I'm thinking like if there's pre-K programming, for example, or after school for young children, something like that. I know there's a lot of budget gaps at the state level that are happening right now because we still don't have a budget passed. And there's a lot of folks that are falling in that gap. So if it's like, we're going to be able to get 5 more childcare staff positions funded that we don't currently have funded, we're going to have to cut. Like that's the kind of like blip of information that would really add to our conversation and help things to go real fast.
Help us, Rachel. What you got?
Thank you all for the feedback. I think we're clear on the data for existing applicants from previous rounds on what's expected. So I think that's something relatively easily behind the scenes we can work on pulling together. I think we need to regroup internally just on what we can foreseeably get done in the short run in order to have those conversations with agencies and come back to you with maybe a bit of a crisper recommendation based on the feedback that we received today. I do think it's important if, Rachel, you could go to the upcoming grant process timeline slide, that we talk about the upcoming timeline, because we, as you mentioned, Councilmember Roney, really wanted to get feedback today on how to use those $50,000 that were unspent from the pilot process, because Rachel and the economic development team are now working on ramping up for our next round of funding, which, as you can see on this slide, is really going to start within the next month. And so we want to make sure that we're all in agreement on the highest and best use of that $50,000, but we also want to acknowledge that we want to then pivot, take lessons learned from the last 2 rounds of funding, and ultimately improve the program for our next full funding cycle, which is about to begin pretty shortly. So Rachel, if you can just really quickly talk through that proposed timeline for the next round. I just think it's important context to highlight as we talk about the $50,000 that we're trying to make decisions on within the next couple of weeks.
Exactly. And I'm glad that we're also talking about kind of what I heard a little bit too, kind of between the lines, is kind of getting that feedback and understanding of how funding impacts organizations. So what we really want to be able to do is, now that the pilot has wrapped up, is be able to take the information from the pilot. We have already done the round 2 awards, but we want to be able to take a moment and collect feedback. So we want to work with key stakeholders to get feedback about the grant program, and then have a little bit of time to be able to do that update. So we're looking at October for getting that feedback, and that would look like a lot of calls, a lot of in-person conversations with a lot of different stakeholders as it relates to this program. And then in November, we'll be using that feedback, like I mentioned, from those stakeholders, the pilot program, and understanding kind of where we need to adjust and refine. So we would take that information to refine the application, the guidelines. I heard loud and clear from multiple folks, but refining the evaluation criteria, using feedback from the stakeholders, and then confirm the evaluation panel members and the evaluation process, and then would want to come back to this committee to present that feedback and what that could look like as far as programmatic adjustments. And then so in December, we would open applications with those adjustments made based on feedback from this committee. And then we would plan to open those applications before the end of this calendar year. And then through January, February, application would be open. We'll close that towards the end of February and finalize evaluations. And then in March, would return to this committee to be able to vote on award recommendations.
Kim?
The timeline sounds good to me. And in fact, I'm fully anticipating that the cost of services is going to go up. And so our asks are going to go up too. And so I'm hoping that within this timeline, we'll have an opportunity as a group. My heart really wants us to do some serious violence interruption work among our youth. And I imagine that I'm not alone at the table in wanting us to be serious about this. So one of the questions I would love to know, because we know that relationships are the key to success in interrupting violence among our youth. What does it look like for us to make a recommendation as a body before this timeline wraps up in March to increase this pool of funding? That is the only thing that I would add, is a recommendation from the Equity Engagement Committee to the full City Council pursuing any sort of available additional funds, whether it's from property taxes that are anticipated above, or if there are cost savings in our budget. We literally need to nickel and dime our budget, because we should not nickel and dime our kids. And so that's the one thing I would like to add, is maybe somewhere around February or March, anticipating we're going to have too great of a need, that we be ready to meet it.
Chair Smith, if you don't mind, just, I guess, if we could circle back to immediate next steps in terms of the $50,000, I guess, based on Rachel's feedback around the upcoming timeline, and then the feedback we got today on additional data needs. I want to make sure what I'm hearing and understanding is correct. We do want to regroup this committee, have that additional data, potentially have staff do some additional outreach to agencies that have previously submitted applications to talk about how they could maximize the use of those dollars, and come back to you with a recommendation in the short term. I'm hearing that is still the
Yes,
desire of this
and
group.
I have a thought to interject,
Okay,
because
sure.
I know we've had a lot of great conversations about people's lack of response when we do reach out. I don't think we should chase. And I think it'll be great information if we could get responses from them and get some feedback as to whether they can accept the $50,000, whether it be helpful. But I think we just need to go forward with getting the information, like you said before. And if they do respond by the time we reconvene, then that'll be helpful information to share at that time. But I don't think we should wait until we get a response from every agency before we move forward on this decision.
Understood. It is. And so then I guess for the part two that Councilmember Roney was suggesting, we can certainly add an agenda item to a future committee where we talk about resources. There are some resources available currently. ARPA is one option that we have not fully expended all of our ARPA funds. There are other options, of course, that we could talk to our finance team about. But we would need some clearer guidance from this committee on how you want that to happen, in terms of, we could, like I said, put something on an agenda, but we'd need more feedback from you on the process component and the level of detail that you would be wanting staff to prepare, and when you would expect to have that back by.
To that point about other funding sources, so that we can kind of up the ante when it comes to strategic partnerships, I have a question for Brad. Brad, I know that the scope of programming for opioid settlement dollars, it could cover some parts of youth development to some degree. I just want some insight from you. If we can make that work, can we earmark that amount of money just for a certain kind of programming under strategic partnerships to support youth?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Councilmember Smith. I think it's possible. We might have to look at it a little more specifically, because we are continuing to try to analyze the allowance under the national settlement for the opioid funds. But generally speaking, there's a pretty broad allowance if it's directly addressing the opioid crisis from an operational perspective. So that's the big issue, is operational versus capital expenditures, and operational is where we can spend the money. So I do think it's possible.
All right, just something I considered, because I know we're thinking about going in a different direction and actually ceding our amount to the county to help with some of their work. Just a thought. I think I saw both hands. Councilwoman Turner, I think your hand went up first earlier.
Well, and it may not really matter. I was going to ask staff, if we do say come back with this 50,000 and the organizations and the criteria that meet it, like, what's the reality and time to deploy that? Because if we're looking at deploying the next round in just a matter of months, I mean, do you write checks right away and they get to these folks? Is there greater process getting through legal and documents and all of that, or?
Yes. So one of my recommendations in this schedule, looking at opening up applications in December, is based on just that limited capacity. We want to be able to provide really good customer service, and that does look like working with organizations really closely to get the documents that we need from them, and to do that in a streamlined way. And so it has taken quite some time in both rounds to get the agreements developed. Fortunately, I got some wonderful support from folks in finance to assist with finalizing the agreements for round 2. But I think from a just a pretty realistic timeline, and given the capacity, we'd probably be looking at similar agreement finalization, agreement execution dates for this 50, if it's sort of this round 3, and the round 4, they'd be happening in a similar
Yeah, that's what I wondered. I mean, I really would like to get this money on the ground as well. I'm also really sensitive to all the stuff we're asking y'all to do right now across the board, not just this particular activity. So I just wanted to offer that up. It sounds like my colleagues are really supporting the other direction. So that's why I said it may not matter, but I'll just share that I empathize with the additional workload request.
And Sage, I hear you about the additional workload, but that's one of the reasons why I'm not interested in trying to fund a new expansion program. I think working with one of our existing established organizations that we've already funded makes the most sense, because it will limit the amount of new work that's created, instead of filling a gap that we know exists in programming that's already happening.
So Kim, knowing that, may I ask you a question?
Sure.
Knowing that the money would hit the ground at the same time, does that alter your opinion? I mean, it's like running 2 different processes concurrently, when we could just put the 50 on top of the additional funding that's in next round.
Yeah, I'm super not interested in continuing to hold funds back when we have serious needs in our community.
I'm not hearing hold funds though. I'm hearing they would land at the same time. That's why I mentioned it.
Well, if we can do anything to get in front of it not landing at the same time, then I think we need to move expeditiously. So anything that we can do from our end to say, like, let's cut a check, I would like to see that happen. Additionally, I really appreciate, Rachel Wood, that you met my question about additional funding with optimism. However, opening up a new kind of use for the ARPA funds after we have equity and feasibility scored projects that are still waiting for us to show up around them. I think ARPA funds is not going to be the answer for this, but I would love for us to find some other wiggle room. So thank you for the optimism. And also, I don't think that we should start a whole new process about the limited amount of ARPA funds for this. It'd be my take.
Any other comments towards this? I think the next best thing for us to do is maybe let's all pull out our calendar so we can get back to this table as soon as possible. I know we have I would say let's try to do it on Tuesday, because I know we all schedule time for city council stuff, and I can squeeze it in on Tuesday, but I don't want to put staff in a crunch, trying, to produce information on that day. I mean, before that time, because the information will have to be ready and available to us to make decision by Friday. What you think, Rachel?
If we could just internally as staff regroup, and then we'll work with Katie to identify a date that works with your calendars. We, of course, want to get back to you as quickly as possible. We do ultimately want to deploy the $50,000 as quickly as possible based on the feedback received today. But I just would hate to hastily make a decision without having an opportunity to have a more detailed conversation with the team on what we think we can realistically get done and have ready for you all to review.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, that ends that item. Let's go to public comment. Katie, do we have anybody in the speaker queue?
One moment, I will check. No, we do not.
All right, I see you all soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.